Hello, welcome to the Sports Philanthropy Podcast. I am your host, Roy Kessel, and today we are very excited to have with us special guest. We have Amy Hever from the MLB Players Trust, and Amy is going to share with us the incredible work that they're doing through the trust and work that they do with the players through Major League Baseball. So, Amy, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
We're excited to learn about all of the incredible ways that you're supporting the players. I know that it's a lot of work. There's a lot of different backgrounds and diversity of interests. And before we get to all of those things, though, I want to take you back to the time when Amy was a young girl and have you share with us what got Amy interested in sports.
I mean, it certainly has been a journey. I'll say that, but I honestly, you kind of go back to your earliest memory. I can't even envision a time when I wasn't in the yard playing something. You name in the sport, I probably was dabbling in it in some way, playing throughout the course of my young days until I got into organized sports later on in grade school.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I think so many of us have that memory right at that age. Speaking for myself, I think sports was always the escape from school. It was something that we enjoyed, right? It was like you wait the whole day to be able to have recess or gym class or play sports after school. But looking back on what goes on now, it really, I think, helped many of us develop that active lifestyle and, being engaged with a lot of different sports.
Yeah, it's so true. And that you mentioned recess, gym class. I have such fond memories of it. I mean, maybe for some other people, it was a time or times in the school day that they didn't enjoy as much. I remember just couldn't wait to get outside and be in recess, whether that was a kind of pick up a game of tag football or kickball. I mean, soup to nuts. We were out there every minute we could squeeze out of the day involved in some type of sport. And those are memories that are just so clear in my mind. And it's been an interesting journey in my very humble athletic life. I was interrupted in my school days in the United States and actually spent the latter part of my elementary years and middle school years in Japan. And coming back to the US was really the first opportunity that I had to be a part of team sports. And that was the volleyball, basketball, softball activities that I participated in. I thoroughly enjoyed it, loved it, and decided to make a pivot when I got to high school to what I say are the most glorious individual sports. And was participating in tennis and winter and spring track. So really have had just a really amazing opportunity to be a part of a lot of different sports and really truly understand what the power of sport can offer to someone.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of the sports that you played, and I think it's interesting to see the different skills and relationships that people develop from sports. I played a lot of sports growing up and really a lot all the way up to the pandemic. And each team had a different culture and identity, right? You had people from different backgrounds and different geographic areas that would play. And I think that's one of the things that really drew me to sports was the opportunity to connect and engage with all of those people.
Yeah, absolutely. Sports just brought a whole different element of joy to my life. And I have, again, fond memories throughout my high school years. I can remember being in class and daydreaming and actually playing through what my next track and field event would be or what my next tennis match would be. I have just so many positive things to say about those experiences. And to be able to now be on the other side of the field, the court, what have you, and being able to work on behalf of our players just really it brings this home in a unique way for me.
Well, and it's something that as you evolved and went through and grown into your current role, right? That's something that you've taken with. I think so many people that have that passion for sports want to work in sports, but you had the good fortune, we'll say, of being able to develop that career. So take us through that process of how you decided that, in addition just to enjoying sports and being around it, that's something you wanted to pursue professionally.
Sure. It's all about how you decide to put your passion into action, and whether that's something that you enjoy recreationally or something that you decide to also combine into your career. So my career started in the for-profit corporate world, but I learned pretty early on that there was something missing for me. And it was the whole giving back, being a part of the community in a very, very intentional way, that I was very clear after, kind of my first stint in the real world, that I wanted to shift and be a part of the nonprofit social sector space. And had an opportunity to connect the dots to another passion of mine, which was really connecting the dots to the time in which I lived overseas, and wound up working, believe it or not, in arts and culture as my first role in the nonprofit sector. And from there, really proceeded on to finding what was the next thing that was going to connect who Amy was at that time with what was truly resonating, what was resonating in terms of how I wanted to help and give back. So from arts and culture, had opportunities to then be a part of disaster relief and recovery efforts, to be a part of a social services organization, medical health and research. And before you know it, this unique opportunity came about while I was at the tail end of my role and service with the Smithsonian Institution, through a mutual corporate partner of ours, made an introduction to me with the 76ers. And this was a newly created role in corporate social responsibility that was connecting the dots with their community relations arm and a new nonprofit foundation that the Sixers had created. And so this was a role that would take on both of those basically operations, and trying to find a way in which to really align the Sixers with all of its fans and its community engagement efforts that it wanted to pursue. So the rest is kind of history in terms of how I made that really interesting shift from what I'll say is more traditional nonprofit work to now what is, I say, an incredibly unique niche of sports philanthropy. And so the 76ers and HBSE, Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment, was that first opportunity for me.
Well, and that's a great, that's an incredible first step, right? Obviously, you're starting, as you said, in many regards near the top, right? With an elite organization that's got a lot of contacts, a lot of resources, a lot of power in that sports sector, and embeds the values of sports philanthropy within the culture of what they build within their organizations. So talk a little bit about the kind of work that you did there.
It was very much, I would say, an entrepreneurial approach. And part of that, I think, is in my background, meaning build something new or take something that may need to be refreshed and build it in a different way that meets the needs of today. And so with the Sixers, while community relations certainly had been a part of the organization for decades, arguably, this was now the opportunity to incorporate, okay, how are we going to add in this new business of the Sixers Youth Foundation and have that work in partnership with community relations to try and impact more people? In our particular case, our real strict and focus was on youth. How do we engage that next generation of leaders? And so for us, the overall really portfolio of our work became three entities, or I should say two entities in a department, that we combined into saying, okay, how do we use the community relations, resources, and efforts of the Sixers Youth Foundation, and also Wilt Chamberlain's foundation, which we wound up managing, to use all of those pieces to help do exactly that? How do we help cultivate the next generation of leaders in the greater Philadelphia area. Just an incredible experience to really be at the beginning stages or have that opportunity to build out a portfolio where we had also the flexibility in taking some risk, meaning working with nonprofits that are boots on the ground, that know their communities, that know what the needs are, that know how to implement change, and helping work in partnership with them to take their work to the next level. It was a really amazing time.
Well, that's special to have that. And, you know, when you were there, I know that you said it was an entrepreneurial environment. So share some of the growth that you went through as you were building that role.
Sure. We knew, and not something that's earth shattering, I would say. We knew that we wanted to really focus in on youth. We knew that we wanted to really provide youth with access and opportunity to high quality programs. And so really starting from scratch in some ways, we were looking to see how we could harness the power of our game in new and unique ways. And one project that I keep going back to that was one of the, I would say, not only most powerful projects that we've been a part of, but also demonstrates how you can implement a level of sustainable change. A lot of times there's an assumption when a sports team is getting involved in their community that it's very much a one-off activity. So it's an event that we do, here's an opportunity to do some great camera moments with the players, and that's it. That's certainly a part of it, but it's much, much more than that happens before and after. And so as a community in North Philadelphia that we had identified, and by way of some other nonprofit partners who were experts in the space. And we said, who could really benefit from the 76ers coming in, helping to renovate a basketball court so we could provide not only just some excitement around a refresh of a physical asset, but also making that asset more accessible. And so we actually wound up partnering with the City of Philadelphia, Parks and Recreation, a local nonprofit arts organization, as well as a community redevelopment agency. And this court wound up being so much more than that. It wound up being a community-based project where they had a platform now to tell their story, to share the story of how this community used to thrive, some of the negative impacts that had hit that community in recent years, multiple years, and what they wanted to see positively for this community in the future. Wound up being this mixed media art exhibition, a photography exhibit, some unique creative musical assets that were developed. And then the Sixers had this opportunity to really join hand in hand with them and bring an amazing community-based event to this neighborhood to celebrate the revitalization of the basketball court and the start of a new youth basketball program that still is in existence today.
Well, and I love what you said there, because you and I have spoken several times about the fact that too many of the, we'll call it the team initiatives, end up focusing on the sort of window dressing philanthropy of bringing people out for appearances and photos and autograph signings and things like that, as opposed to the real impact work that you're describing now. And I think that, you know, seeing organizations take the lead in that space is really important, because that trickles down not only to the individuals that they serve in the community, but it creates that positive momentum and positive peer pressure to the other teams in their city, to other teams in their league, to kind of meet those standards and be able to implement the same type of programming.
That's right. And there are so many tremendous leaders in the space. Philadelphia, amongst all the professional sports teams, the leaders have been there for numerous years and are doing tremendous work. Nationally, there's more examples than one can count of how these teams are really digging in and making an impact.
So you were working there and having some great opportunities in that position. So what was the motivation for you in terms of moving on to your next step?
Well, COVID was certainly something that was a disruptor in all of our lives in some way. And that was really, I would say, an inflection point for me in my career. And there was presented to me an opportunity to now take this type of work to a sport union, so a players association, which I honestly hadn't really thought about previously. And this was a role where it certainly wasn't something new. The Major League Baseball Players Trust has been around for well over 25 years, but due to COVID, had really fallen out of the consciousness of our players. Just because of COVID protocols that were in place, and if you take into consideration the multiple years in which COVID impacted the baseball schedule, it was a time in which players needed to be made aware again that this resource existed and how it could help meet their needs, meet their interests, and help them become the most really impactful philanthropists that they could be. The difference between a team and working for the Players Trust is not only who your primary focus is, that's obviously at the team level, it's the team and that local community and market to the team. Now the focus is on the players, which is global. And this was just a really, really amazing opportunity. I know I keep saying that. I truly feel that about every single opportunity that I've had. But here is really the role that would take all of my experiences. So not just with the 76ers and HBSE, but also the experiences that I've had over the course of my nonprofit career, and be able to meaningfully apply it to what our players want to see and want to do and want to be a part of. So for us at the Players Trust, the simplest way in which to describe who we are and what it is that we're here to do. And we're here on behalf of our players to help them do just that, to help amplify the impact that they can have for the causes and the communities that they care about.
Well, and I love that word amplify, because so often these initiatives get, I'm not going to say buried, but they don't get the attention that they deserve. They don't get the same focus as some of the negative things that might happen, right? And so if there's a unfortunate incident, or if there's situations like drunk driving or domestic abuse or other things like that, right, those get a lot of attention. If a player sends out a silly tweet, right, that might be the fodder on the ticker on ESPN and FS1 for the whole week, and the talk shows, and a lot of focus. But when somebody's doing incredible work in their community, maybe it gets a short conversation or a very short snippet on that. And having the ability to amplify that work, I think, is crucial, and getting it in front of more people that can recognize that. And I think sometimes the athletes don't even realize the power that they have, because in their world, they may not be the superstar, right? They may not be an all-star player, but their ability to influence their community is still significant.
It's absolutely right. And to what you said in the beginning of that comment, it speaks to really the genesis of the Players Trust. So the Players Trust was established in 1996. And for those folks that can remember that far back, this was really a response to the strike, the baseball strike that had happened at that time. And the players were really getting crushed by fans as a result of really the negative media that was coming out, that players were greedy ball players. And that was really the predominant theme. The Players Trust was created as a platform in a way for the players to more easily express themselves and demonstrate that we're not just players on the field. We are people that really deeply care about our communities, where we live, where we play, where we call home. And so at that time, in the latter part of the 90s, this was a way for them to easily engage in those communities and causes. Now, fast forward to where we are today, certainly the philanthropic space has changed, has gotten more sophisticated. There are more options. There are more opportunities, almost this saturation of opportunities, and certainly requests that are sent to the players. And what we're here to do now and today is really help them and meet them where they're at. So you mentioned there may be a player who is early on in his career, maybe somebody who's not an all-star. It doesn't matter where you sit in the roster, how long or short that you've been in the league. We will help you take your work to whatever that next level may be. It could be in the beginning stages and trying to figure out how to use one's voice and platform. It could be that you already know the cause that you want to support, but you want to figure out how. How can I actually make a difference in this particular area? We're here to help players do just that.
Well, and it's so important because one of the motivations for starting Sports Philanthropy Network was speaking to many athletes that really had a love for their community, a passion for giving back, right? And unfortunately, they've been not been given a lot of support or guidance in terms of how to do that. And so I love the work that you're doing with the trust, because most of the players have been sort of, we'll call it, herded into really celebrity type of functions, signing autographs, taking pictures with people, playing in golf outings, going to fundraising dinners, right? And trained to believe that that's the core of how you give back to the community. Whereas that's the celebrity function, right? That's not really giving their heart and soul. That's not really them making an investment of their time or dollars or contacts to help change lives, to help transform communities. And so take people through a little bit of the work that you do with the players and how you go about that process of collaborating with them.
Sure. And we divide our portfolio into two buckets. So one is how we work with players one-on-one. And that's what I was speaking to just before about, meeting players where they're at. And so one way in which we do that is we actually have a philanthropy award. And while that certainly is driving a shiny light and some resources to that particular player's cause, the reason is because of who we are at our core. We want to amplify that player and the work that he's doing, and also be able to amplify the nonprofit and the cause that he is looking to and seeking to address. Trevor Williams with the Nationals is an example. He was a recipient this year. He works very intently on a project, a nonprofit called Project 34, which was created after a teammate of his had a very tragic accident during a baseball game and had broken his neck and had become paralyzed. And so they do this work on behalf of Project 34 to bring resources to those who have mobility issues. A tremendous amount of work that he and time that he has spent on this effort. And so him as the winner of this recent, what we call MVP, Most Valuable Philanthropist Award, it gives him additional resources that he can apply to this cause. We also tell the story. So we're able to capture his story and share that on our website, share that on our own social platform, be able to capitalize on other public relations opportunities that can get that word out a bit further. So that's one example of how we work with players one-on-one and amplifying their voice. On the other side of our portfolio is the work that we do with youth. And so why that? No surprise. What is the one cause area I would say that rises to the top that is something that players most commonly want to lean in on? And it's giving back through the game to the next generation. So we have worked with players who have greatly informed our very unique programming portfolio on that side, where we've developed 3 programs now. 2 are classroom-based. 1 is on the field that at its real core is using the power of sport to help coach and mentor the next generation of leaders. And one of the programs that we are working on right now is called the Players Exchange. It's actually a virtual program, and its intent is to help youth really learn and appreciate the value of teamwork. So what does teamwork look like in baseball? How do I apply that to my school day, my school life, as well as understand how that can be applicable throughout the course of one's lifetime? And this program, I mentioned that it was virtual. It actually pairs youth up from one school and community in the United States with another school and community abroad. And these locations are selected based on where we have player engagement. So over the next few months, we're actually looking forward to pairing up some youth in Atlanta with some youth in Tokyo. And they'll have this very unique opportunity to run through this teamwork curriculum and have the opportunity as well to be able to engage live over a Zoom-like call with some current major league players. And so that cross-cultural piece we see is very important, especially when you have a sport that close to 30% are actually foreign born.
And that's an incredible opportunity, because I think one of the things that people underestimate, right, we in this country, in the United States, right, there's so much sports going on. I think oftentimes people forget that there's enormous numbers around the country that don't ever have access to go to a sporting event. Their families can't afford to go. They may live truly in the shadow of a stadium and never be there. And we've met people and organizations around the country, right, that work with youth, within a mile or two of major league sports facilities that have never had the opportunity to do that. So being there, being paired with the players themselves, being paired in the cross-cultural environment, it's something that I don't think that impact can be quantified. It's just an experience that will really transform lives. So, Amy, I want to thank you for coming on. You've shared so much amazing information. I love the depth of the work that you're doing, and especially seeing how it goes far beyond the superficial elements that are often included. And before we let you go, I want to change to a little bit more of a lighthearted subject here and put you on the spot and ask you, if you could be commissioner of any sport, what sport would you choose?
It's a good one. I mentioned that I have such fond memories of recess and gym class, and I was someone that was always outside or in the gym playing with the boys. And my loves were football and baseball. And so I'm going to go out there to limb and say, I'd love to be the commissioner of women's baseball and see that sport be brought to a different light for women to play and participate in. That would be the one that I would pick.
Well, we all know the famous movie that's out there, and women's sports are jumping up in so many other regards. I think it's only a matter of time. Baseball would seem to have less obstacles than some of the other sports that are out there now, with efforts to get women's tackle football going and professional women's hockey league and things of that nature. You've seen the growth in the WNBA and WSL in particular, really flying up the charts and getting a ton more exposure and visibility. So when you look at that sport and conceive of what women's baseball would look like, give us an idea of what that would look like. What kind of changes would you make from what currently exists in MLB?
With women's sport, women's sports generally, we're hitting an inflection point, a long overdue one. And I think for me as commissioner, I would just be championing the sport like crazy to encourage more and more young women to be a part of it, and to really, I think, is create a platform perhaps that even is equal to Major League Baseball. I love the sport, and in this work here at the Players Trust, I've had the opportunity to see some of the youth girls baseball programs that exist around the country. It's incredibly inspiring, and I have to live vicariously through them. When we do our clinics on the field and we have some girls out there playing baseball, you probably see me out there too, trying to jump in and fake my way through it as well. So I just want to see access to all sports that women want to be a part of.
Well, that's outstanding. I think it's something that's going to happen. It'll be interesting to see when the transition occurs from girls primarily playing softball as they grow up and evolving to moving to more towards baseball, because there's really no reason that it can't be there. I'm not sure the historical reasons of why that separation developed, but it doesn't seem to be any current reason that it shouldn't evolve into the baseball mode. So we'll have all of our ambassadors and constituents vote for Amy for commissioner as we launch a baseball league, and we'll look forward to following that success.
Sounds good.
So, Amy, thank you for sharing your time with us today. We really appreciate it. Enjoyed learning about everything that you're doing. And again, I think as people have questions, we encourage you to go and visit the website at playerstrust.org, or you can email Amy at ahever@mlbpa.org, and should be happy to connect with you and help you understand how you might be able to support her efforts and be involved with the players. And for all of our viewers and listeners, we appreciate you taking time to join us today on the Sports Philanthropy Podcast. This is your host, Roy Kessel, signing off. Please remember to live generously. Thank you.
Thank you.